Hi, everyone. We want to welcome you to our second cohort webinar. The topic is Exploring Diversity and our September programs, which is My Home, Your Home, and Dancing to the Beat. So we're going to first get started with Beth Smith, who is going to be our trainer tonight. Just be prepared that in the top right-hand corner of your screen, you should see a GoToWebinar control panel. Beth's going to be asking you questions or to participate. And in that top right-hand corner is where you're going to be typing in questions or comments. So just make sure you know where that is. And then also, this webinar is being recorded. So if you have to leave or whatever, then you can come back later, use the link that you signed in for the webinar, and that will take you to the recording. But with that said, we've got a lot to cover. That's why we've set up for an hour and a half tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Beth and let Beth get started with the webinar.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I will mention on the forefront that both where I am and where Sherry is, there are thunderstorms about. So if by any chance you lose us, it might mean we lost power, but right now it's quiet and we'll keep our fingers crossed. We're going to start this webinar with just a brief overview of how it's going to roll. And like I said, or like Sherry said, we are going to be asking for participation. That's a really important part of this cohort, is sharing ideas. The first part is going to be about what diversity is and why it's important to include diversity into your program, talking a little bit about the research behind that, and also what does it look like to make sure that your program is reflecting the diverseness of your group and of the world. And then we're going to kind of tie that into our 2 units for September and talk about how you can take what you've just learned about diversity and incorporate it into the units in your own program. And so, yeah, it's a lot to cover. If you have questions at any time, please just type the question in the question box. Sherry is behind the scenes, kind of like the Great Wizard of Oz, and she will answer your question as best as she can. And with that said, we're going to get started, and we're going to start off actually with a question. So let's try that question box out, and I want to ask everyone that's on the webinar currently to type into the question box what diversity means to them. So if I said to you, what is diversity? What would you say back to me in response? And just type that into the question box, and then Sherry's going to go through them, and then we'll get started.
And as you're typing that in, the handout that we've asked you to download is the PowerPoint that Beth's going through. It has nothing to do with the credit or the certificate. The link for the certificate will come to you after the webinar is over with through an email, just to give you a heads up. But if you don't see that handout, check to see if you've got a GoToWebinar control panel, maybe at the bottom of your screen, and you need to bring that up. It should overlay the PowerPoint presentation that you're looking at. Okay, let's see if we've got any. Okay, one response: the many differences between people.
Very good. Anybody else? Are we all still recovering from our Tuesday?
Different people's personality, different races, different interests.
Excellent.
A mix of culture, lifestyle, religion, and race. Oh, those are good answers.
Yes, very good.
It is different cultures and nationalities of their backgrounds.
Perfect.
I'm glad to get those responses. That's great.
Yeah,
thank you.
Excellent. All right, we're going to keep that up through the whole webinar. Very good. All right, so we're going to move to my first screen, and what is diversity? And a lot of these you just mentioned. It's race, it's socioeconomic status, it's nationality, but some things we don't always think about when we think about diversity are things like our abilities and our exceptionalities and our strengths and weaknesses, plus also our likes and dislikes and our past experiences. So there are many, many different aspects of diversity that come into play when we're talking about what diversity is within your program and within your classroom or your group. And so as you are thinking about your own group, we're going to think about these different areas of diversity and how you can integrate them into the things that you do each day with the children. So why is diversity important? Diversity is important for a number of reasons. Diversity is important because research has shown that one of the most important things it does is it builds self-awareness and pride, and that leads to a positive sense of self. So in other words, if you're being aware of the different differences in the children, and you're showing them that this is great, that we're all different and we're all unique, then that makes every child feel so great about themselves. And that's a big part of what you do in your role with children every day, is to build that self-concepts. um, hey Sherry, I think your mic might be on because I can hear some background noise. Can you
No,
mute?
actually, I already had it muted, so
Huh, maybe
hopefully.
that's just I don't know what. Anyway, okay, cool. All right, and then the second part of that is it increases the children's awareness and appreciation for diverse beliefs and cultures. They begin to understand that um, everybody's not the same, and that's okay. It's great to be different. It's great to have different beliefs. It's great to have different, perhaps, things that you celebrate in your family or favorite foods that your family enjoys. It also builds a cohesiveness within the group that celebrates inclusion, that everybody's included. Nobody's left out. Everybody's equal, and that's really important as well. And then finally, it empowers children to identify and then act against unfairness. In today's world, there's an awful lot of unfairness. And so it helps children to recognize. Now, a toddler's not going to recognize this, they're not developmentally ready for that. But as children get into the ages of 4, 5, and 6, they begin to understand what it means when something isn't fair. Sometimes that's like they got more cookies than I have. But then they begin to recognize that maybe someone's not treated the same way they're treated, and that that's not fair. And the way that our world will change is as children are more in tune to that. And I have to say, my own children, who are now 18 and 21, are way more in tune to that maybe than I was when I was growing up. And part of that's probably because I grew up in central Pennsylvania in a very um, rural community where I wasn't exposed to all the different cultures that they've been exposed to. I live outside of DC, and it's a very, mixed bag of people from all over the world and different ethnicities and different socioeconomic backgrounds. And so they've been exposed to way more than I ever was as a child. And there's a good the Council for Professional Recognition. A lot of this data came from them, so you can check out their website to learn more about that, why it's important. So the first part of this is you have to look at yourself. And that's what I was just mentioning a minute ago. What is your own cultural background? Where do you come from, basically? Do you have a hidden curriculum based on your own past educational experiences? And I'm like, what does that mean? Well, what that means is, do you think children should be able to read when they get to kindergarten? Or do you think that's not developmentally appropriate? Did you have to know how to read when you went to kindergarten? I'll be honest, and I'll probably give away some of my age, but when I went to kindergarten, I remember eating Jello and playing prairie dogs climbing under the tables. So that was my kindergarten experience. I do not remember worksheets. I do not remember reading in books. I remember music time. I remember playing outside. So things have changed a lot, obviously, since when I was in kindergarten. And so part of what you bring to the table is your own background and your own experiences. What personal biases do we have? I mean, we have to recognize we all have them, regardless of what they are. So everybody has personal biases, whether we want to admit it or not, we do. And then what personal experiences do you have with discrimination, and how could they affect your approach with children? We have all, in some way, shape, or form, experienced discrimination. And if you're a woman, you've experienced discrimination maybe because of that. If you're of a different race, it may be because of that. There are a lot of different reasons. It might be age. It could be age discrimination, and that can go both ways. You're too young to do something, you're too old to do something. So your own personal experiences really do play a lot into how you look at diversity and bringing it into your curriculum and into your program. So it's important for you to just be aware of what's going on or what has happened to you and how that might affect your approach. So this right now is going to be your next exercise. So take a minute and think about your own school experience. How does what you experienced as a child affect what you believe children should learn and how they should learn it? So what I'd like you to do is just think for a minute when you were in, let's just pick kindergarten, okay? And think about how what you experienced in kindergarten might affect what you think children should know or how you think you should teach children to get ready for kindergarten, especially at this back to school time. And type your thoughts in the question box about, your experience in kindergarten. What do you remember and how might that affect how you interact with your children or the expectations that you have for them as you prepare them for kindergarten?
Talking about giving your age away, Beth, when I didn't even have kindergarten. so that
I
even
don't
goes back further.
I don't know how you survived, Sherry, and have become
I know,
successful.
I know. It's amazing. But we don't have any response. Okay, here we go. Free playing, crafts, and drawing. Yeah. We didn't even have kindergarten. Thank you. um, so, well, you wouldn't have any biased feelings then about what kindergarten should be. Okay.
What
Don't have
about
any more comments. Go ahead.
Okay, so here's another twist on that question. So what about, here's a biggie. How do you think children should be taught to read? How were you taught to read, and how do you think children should be taught to read?
We just had a good response. I remember kindergarten being a safe, friendly environment. I hope to have the same environment for the children I care for. That's wonderful.
I love that response.
Yeah, that sums it all up. I do not really remember kindergarten time, but my opinion, children now as a teacher or system expect more than normal. So true.
I totally agree with that. And I think that's where you have to kind of step back and in this instance, to be honest with you, my bias is what I did in kindergarten, as somebody just said, where it was a safe place and you played and you painted and you did that kind of thing, where now kindergarten is, you're there sitting in a desk, there's barely any recess, you're doing a lot of worksheets and reading groups and math things, and it's for me, my bias is actually wanting to go back to what I experienced because I think it's better for children, and yet you're up against what is actually occurring. So again, just your past experiences with school. Maybe you didn't have a good experience with school. Maybe in school, for instance, you had a math teacher that totally turned you off to math. And so math is really hard for you to get excited about with the children because of your own personal experiences. So it's just important to take a step back and think about, okay, could anything that have happened to me either be influenced this in one way or the other? And just be aware of that. It's just really important to know that we all come to the table with that experience that we can't erase. It happened to us. Whoops. I want to go back one. Uh-oh,
We
did I
had,
go? I think I went too far the wrong way. Hold on one second. Let me go back. There we go.
we had one other response that just says basics from home that should be taught at home, learning, name, spelling, name, spell, phone, and address. So that was just something.
Good.
Oh,
Very.
well, we had several more now. I felt that kindergarten is too early to read. Yeah. My experience in kindergarten, it was coloring, playing games, ABCs, but I would like to teach the children to learn more of what I did. I was taught to read by putting together alphabet, for example, CAT put together. I'm assuming you're talking about phonics.
Yep.
Like learning the beginning to read, name spelling. So I'm sorry, some of those came in as you were talking. So just
Yeah,
want to share.
but no, that's excellent. And again, that goes around and comes around too, right? So I would imagine that the majority of us on this call learned how to read by phonics, where we learned the letters had sounds, you put the sounds together, you got words. There were some words you couldn't sound out, so you just had to know them. And then we had, back in the 90s, we hit the whole language phenomenon where, oh no, you don't ever have to teach them letters and sounds because they're just going to learn by reading books. And now we're kind of to a mix of both with who knows what thrown in. And so again, all those experiences play into the way that you create your program and what you want it to look like. And for those of you who want, your experience, their experience with you to be more like the kindergarten you remembered, just being aware that that's playing into why you're doing things the way you're doing them. It's part of who you are. So how can you develop cultural understanding? One of the best ways is to ask questions. The families that come to you with the children that are in their family, they come to you with a wide variety of backgrounds. And those backgrounds can be cultural, those backgrounds can be um, ethnic, those backgrounds can be even age. There's such a difference now between, I look at my kids, like I said, who are 18 and 21, and the way their lives are so digital. And they laugh at me all the time because I can't figure out how to do X, Y, or Z on my phone. But again, there's a difference, right? So that is different. Their world is different than what your world is. And so sometimes those things collide. Um, but asking questions, especially when you're enrolling new families, so that you're aware of perhaps maybe they have things in their family that are special to them, special celebrations. Maybe there are certain things they don't celebrate. Just being aware of their background, and accepting and celebrating the differences in the culture of the children in your group. It can be a wonderful thing to bring different cultural experiences into the group, and then the other children get the benefit of learning about them through. And like I said, that was very true of my children living here because it was a very diverse community. They were exposed to people of all different nationalities that celebrated all different types of things, and became much more in tune with their world. Create an environment in your program where all families are welcome, and this should include more than just parent conferences and meetings. We're going to talk about how you can do this when we get to looking at our unit, My Home, Your Home. That's a perfect one for this, because even something as simple as where do you live? Like, not everybody lives in a single family home. People live in condominiums, they live in townhomes, they live in apartments, they live in mobile homes, they live in many different places. And just being aware of that and keeping that in mind is super important. Encourage children and families to share cultural stories and experiences with the group. This not only fosters respect, it helps the children gain knowledge about cultures other than their own. So I know it's really hard to get families to come in, but even if they could do, using technology in the right way, create on your phone, you can do a video, and you could create a video of something special that you want to share about your family. Maybe it's a tour of, like when we do My Home, Your Home, they could go on a tour and talk about their home and where they live. And just make your program a place where all the children feel valued and appreciated. Because the fact of the matter is, the research shows that children that feel that value and they feel like they're appreciated for who they are less likely to have issues with a low self-esteem as they get older, because they're confident in who they are and they're proud of their heritage and they're proud of their culture. So what do you know? Take a minute to write down the names of all the children in your group, and then write down at least one thing you know about each child's culture or background besides his or her name. All right, and then pick one of your children. You don't need to give us the name, but give us, if you don't want to give the real name, but although we don't know who you are or who those children are, but if you want to give us a different name, they can, but just the name and one thing you know about, pick one child, one thing you know about their culture and their background. It could be something as simple as they live with their grandmother and not with their mom, or they live in an apartment which they share with extended family, or they're from a Hispanic background and maybe some of the family doesn't speak any English at all. So whatever you know, pick one child in your group. But I want you to, after the webinar is over, think about all the children in your group. But for right now, just think about one of them and write down something you know, and then share that in the question box.
Yeah, when you type, it does go in the question box, and then you just hit the little send button. Someone asked how to type. I'm assuming that's what you mean. It's where to type, but it is under the little question box. And actually, okay. Her grandfather comes from the islands.
Cool.
Okay. Foods. So I'm assuming you mean that you know what types of different foods they like, maybe. Okay. From Nigeria.
Ooh, very cool.
Moreo. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name. um, those are really good things to know about the things that they like, the foods. I
Yes,
have
and
a
the foods that they
child.
eat.
I have a child from Gambia, an African background. They speak Wolof. Sometimes he mixes English and Wolof, Wollof. I hope I'm
Wow,
pronouncing that correct.
how interesting.
Bohemian.
Ooh,
Drew, he lives with his grandparents, and we do not know who his father is, but he is very dark skinned, so obviously is of an ethnic background. The fact that you know he lives with his grandparents and not with
yep.
the father is very important.
Yes, even if it's for something as simple as when Father's Day rolls around, to be sensitive to the fact that, he doesn't necessarily have a father that's living in his home, but he has a grandfather, which can be the father for Father's Day. So that's really important to know that information.
From Indian, I learned to eat yogurt and rice, delicious. Father
Yum.
from Pakistan, mother from islands.
Ooh,
All those are important. I know to just know where the children are coming from. Those are
exactly.
great examples. Great
And it
examples.
opens the door for you to bring in those cultures and their backgrounds into your program, and it just makes your program like a melting pot, where everybody feels like they're part of the stew. Let's just put it that way. All right, awesome. Okay, we're going to move on. So we talked a little bit about, gathering the data when they enroll. There can be something as simple as part of your enrollment packet, which I'm sure most of you have this, where you ask about, what celebrations does your family, take part in? Are there any they don't take part in? What are some of the favorite foods your child enjoys eating at home? Is there anything about your cultural background that you feel is important for me to know that I can integrate into our program? Who do they live with? The example just a minute ago of the ones that lived with grandparents and not with the father is excellent. What languages they speak? We talked about that. Somebody brought up the fact that the child speaks both and kind of mixes them up. But that's amazing to me how fast that children learn languages when they're young like that and can just go back and forth and back and forth. It's crazy. And the foods. So all of those things are really important because they give you talking points and they also give you points for which you can integrate more diversity into your curriculum and into your program. What other questions could you ask family that would help you gain some background information that would help you then integrate into your program? So come up with a question that you would ask families. Maybe you put it on your enrollment form. Maybe it's just something that as you're talking with them and we're getting ready to do the My Home, Your Home unit, you want to get some information. What else could you ask and put those questions in the question box?
It may take a little bit longer for you to kind of pull your thoughts on that.
You're
Probably
allowed to
already have
noodle.
it many. Yeah, you probably already have in mind what you asked. Had a few more come in from the last question
Oh, good.
about
Go
the
ahead and share
children. Is
those. Sure.
Charlie was adopted and lives happily with his new family. One little girl is from a single mother household. Um, okay, here's some questions. Is she or he your biological or foster child?
Excellent question. It gives you a lot of information that then
Mhm.
you can interweave as you work with the child.
A nickname. Does the child have a nickname? That's
Ah,
a
that's
really
a
good
good
one.
one.
And if they like the nickname. um, I will ask families to write some basic words and sentences they use at home so that I can help their child adapt easily and quickly in the classroom. That's
That's a great
interesting.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good idea.
Does the child have any fears? That's a good
Ooh, that's a
question.
very good one. I have a daughter that's terrified of spiders.
How were you taught in your schools in the islands? That's really
That's a
good.
great question because, it may be very different from the way the school is here in the US.
How do they celebrate holidays, and do they celebrate our American holidays? That's very good to know.
Hmm.
Why doesn't he or she get immunization? Hmm.
Oh,
Okay.
that's a big question.
Mhm.
Yes.
Those are all good.
Yeah,
And
they're
how you
excellent
deal with them,
questions.
and how you deal with those answers too.
Right,
Okay.
right. And I think that the key there is just to think about, okay, what information would help me be a better educator and a better, a better provider overall, not just in the intellectual sense, but in the social and emotional, physical even sense, um, to help you learn to integrate all of that information into your day with the child. Because let's face it, you're with them a very long period of time, and so the impact that you have on their lives is huge. And so the more information you have going into it, the more effective you can be, and also more supportive to the child and the family. So those were all great answers. All right, you guys are doing an awesome job. um, Home languages, so this is a really big deal in today's world. You've probably heard the term ELL, which is an English language learner. That can be anybody who the home language is Spanish, the home language is Chinese, the home language is could be French. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? But anyway, that the home they speak a different language, and so this child is learning English on top of already knowing another language. And like I did say, the research is amazing how quickly young children particularly can pick up on new languages. But here are some ways that you can incorporate the child's home language into your program. So books. Um, there are books available in Spanish, a lot of books available now in Spanish, but there are books available in different languages as well, and that's where your librarian can be a great resource. Labeling objects in the room in both English and the home languages. Google Translate is my go-to for this. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So you could, for instance, label, if you have things labeled in the room, which a lot of people will do just to help the children make the connection between, okay, says blocks and I put blocks here, so they make a connection that there's a word for things. Then you could also put the word blocks in Spanish or in Arabic or whatever language it is. So there's an awareness there that there's more than one language out there in this world. A picture chart, especially if you have children coming to you that speak no English at all, you can create a picture chart for things they might need: a tissue, the bathroom, um, their shoes, a coat, whatever you want it to be. You could create a little picture chart and they could point to the things they need. And then when they point to them, you can say that word in English. And as they get more verbal, they should be able to connect their home language. They could even teach you how to say that word in their home language. You might need a translator. Your CCR and our agency could probably point you in the right direction. Again, Google Translate works in a pinch. So if you get an email or you need to send a message, and you can always type it in English and it'll translate it into all kinds of languages. Music and rhymes, you can find lots of music and rhymes on the internet in different languages. You can invite parents and guardians in to be book readers in their native language. Just because the children maybe all speak English and you have one child that's learning English, that'd be really interesting for the non-English speaking children to hear a book read in a different language, and they're flipped on the other side to realize, hmm, this is confusing when somebody's reading a book in a language I don't understand. So it kind of turns the tables. Older children can teach the younger ones. And then there's some amazing research and also some support materials here in these links. They come from Head Start, but there's a great deal about dual language learners, English language learners. There's tips, there's tricks, there's materials, there's all kinds of freebies, and both of those links will take you to places where you can access those and then hopefully incorporate some of that into your program. So you can bring diversity into your program in many different ways. They can be planned or spontaneous experiences. So maybe you're going to do something related to, for instance, when we do our My Home, your home unit, and we're talking about different homes. And it sounds like you have a lot of children that come from other parts of the world. So maybe you ask the parents to, send in or find on the internet, or maybe they even have a picture from a relative that lives in that particular country still, that they could send a picture of the homes there, and you could talk about how homes there are different than the homes here. Problem solving. This is actually a great way to bring diversity into your program. We think of diversity regarding cultures and families and backgrounds, but it's also like that we all don't think the same, and that there's often more than one solution to a problem. So that can be a way to bring diversity in, because it's diversity of thought, right? It's diversity of ideas. Classroom materials and toys. There's tons of different things out there now. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Music is a wonderful way to bring diversity into your program. The internet is a great source for that. Pandora, Spotify, iTunes, even YouTube. Lots of different ways to bring music from different cultures into your program. A diversity wall is a wall where you have pictures of all the different children, and it just helps them see, how they're alike and how they're different. But if you have more verbal children, you can come up with a little like, who am I? And maybe it's things like, my favorite food is, my favorite TV show is, my favorite book is, my favorite color is, or whatever you want to come up on there, just for them to see that everybody is different and we're all wonderful. Visitors, like I mentioned before, and then the languages used, which is DLL, dual language learners. So see those resources on the previous site, or the previous slide from Head Start, because there was a lot of different resources on those 2 pages that I think you would find very helpful. So which of these materials do you have in your program? Here are just a few of the different materials that you can incorporate into your things that children use in your program each day, from multicultural foods to multicultural dolls. And one thing we didn't really touch on a whole lot when we talk about diversity is our exceptionalities, right? So down here in this picture, we have someone in a wheelchair, leg braces, a braille cane, a walking cane, and then I think this person is using the arm braces. But that's really important too, and that's something that again can be built into your program, to talk about exceptionalities. We aren't all good at everything, and that's okay. That's what makes our world a wonderful place. You're going to find that some children are much more physically coordinated than other children. Other children may be more artistic and very capable with fine motor skills, but maybe their gross motor skills aren't as well developed. And that's not unusual, and that's not wrong. But that the fact of the matter is that we are all unique, right? And we all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses. And that's a big part of diversity, is just bringing that in and just making it known that it's okay. We can't all be, in today's world, I sometimes feel like the kids, especially when they get to high school, feel like you have to be good at everything, right? You have to be a star athlete, you have to be a star student, you have to be volunteering 100 hours a week, you have to do all these things. And the fact of the matter is, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and we're all good at something, and we need to figure out what that is and then build upon that, and realize it's okay not to be perfect at everything. So besides these materials that are shown here, what other materials do you have in your program currently that you feel helps you to bring diversity into the everyday experiences you do with children?
Adrienne is one of our favorite people. She's online tonight, and she must have anticipated your question, Beth, because she said the cultural dolls puzzles, and we created our own diversity tree, which has pictures of different families and family makeups. That's a great idea.
I love
Thank you,
it.
Adrienne. She's always one step ahead.
She is. It's true.
Okay, here we got some more. I have most of those items.
Excellent.
Musical instruments. That's a great.
Yes. Yes.
Some of the movies that we watch.
Sure, there's a lot of diversity in any kind of media.
Dress up clothes. That's a good one.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's where you can have also ask parents and caregivers, especially if they have a background they would like to integrate, is do they have any old clothes that are representative of that particular ethnicity that you can integrate into your dramatic play area?
Different
Same thing with
music.
musical instruments would be the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Different music from other cultures and instruments.
Hmm.
Pictures of children from the past is a good way to improve diversity.
That's true.
Uh,
We all look a lot
yeah.
different than we did back in the 80s.
Yeah. We use disability puzzles and models, multicultural dolls, musical instruments, clothes, and food. I have all those items. I also incorporate when I go to a restaurant, the restaurant's menu, eating utensils, anything I can grab from them. Reading,
Chopsticks, for instance.
yeah,
Yeah.
reading books from different cultures. And they make play food that is sushi, tacos, and other diversity food from different countries.
Yep.
Those are all good. I was spent last week with my 4-year-old grandson, and he's trying to use chopsticks. It's hysterical, but he tries. So those are all, they love it. They love exploring the different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Those are
it
all
makes
good.
And it makes, when you have those materials within your program, it becomes normal to them. Like to, for instance, have play sushi and tacos or whatever in dramatic play, then that just becomes normal, right? It's not different, it's not weird, it's just normal. It's like there's so many different kinds of food, and this is just some of the kinds of food. And I guarantee you, not everybody in your group is going to like to eat sushi, or maybe has even eaten sushi, but it becomes normal that that's an option, right? And it's not weird or different or strange. It's the same thing with having all the different colored Play-Dohs that they show up here, and the markers. That way children can, really think about the color of their skin. It used to drive me crazy when I was a girl, because back in that day, there really wasn't a crayon that matched my skin tone. And I like to draw. I was quite the artist when I was little, and I hated it because there was not the right color crayon. I didn't want to be pink. It was not what I wanted, or tan. So I think it's just important to incorporate as much of that as you can. There are also books. There are tons of books now to help you integrate into and reading is a wonderful way to open the door to different cultures. But yeah, these are all great ideas. So what we're going to do now is I want to pause for just a second before we actually go into the Gee Whiz Education website. And I want to see if there are any questions regarding diversity, any challenges that you've been facing in your program, because part of this cohort is for people to share challenges and working solutions with one another. And I'm sure that everybody out there's had challenges and everybody out there's had working solutions. So what I'd like you to do right now is go ahead and share if you've had a challenge, or if you're thinking about, okay, well, how could I do this, or I tried this and it didn't work regarding diversity in your program. Share it in the question box, and we'll kind of try to get a little discussion going here to see if we can all kind of work to help one another. And I'll also take questions about anything that was covered during the PowerPoint.
We had a few more comments come in about exploring diversity in your classroom. And one of the providers responded that since I grew up on a plantation, we talk about cotton, beans, machinery, and working on a plantation. And I think sharing your background with the children is just as important as you knowing about theirs. We have those items, but you can have like a show and tell day where the children can tell about their backgrounds, especially for the little ones may not be able to share that, but they certainly love listening to the little bit older children share that. Even come in dressed and clothing of their culture.
Mm-hmm.
So all those are good. So now's the time too, just that we'll have more time to send questions, but if you got any questions about what's been covered so far, please send them in or type them in. I wish we could all talk, but then it would be chaos. So that's the reason we have you type it in. So, seems like that doesn't seem to have anyone have any questions. So I guess, Beth, we can keep going. If you have them
Okay.
later, I'll cover it, come
Yeah,
back
and
to it.
we're not dropping this concept. It's going on into what we're going to go into next. And I just want to make sure there were no questions on anything in the PowerPoint. Like Sherry said, there is a link in the handout box to a PDF that is this actual PowerPoint that you are more than welcome to download and save, and that way you have it, and that way you can come back and refer to it. Just be patient with me for a second while I end the
Well,
slideshow. Yes?
and I've got one, while you're getting that up, this is a great comment. One challenge is getting dads to understand that boys can play with dolls because it
Oh,
teaches them how to be an uncle, a daddy, a caring, gentle, and loving. This is a cultural thing for many men, and it can be addressed through experiences and talking with them. I love that comment.
absolutely. Anybody else out there on the webinar ever deal with that in their program? You can just give a yes on your comment.
He said, that's awesome. I agree. It's an awesome comment.
I totally agree. And I think once you point
Yes,
that
yes,
out,
yes, yes, yes. You can see it all the way. I love it.
I think once, and the person who commented was absolutely right. I think when you point out to especially a dad that playing with a doll and acting out that process of caring for another person is a great way for children, regardless of whether they're boys, girls, to learn to develop that caregiving empathy type situation with just a doll, right? Which will then hopefully turn into, as they get a little bit older, maybe a pet or a sibling, and then someday down the road, their own children. So sometimes they just need to be made aware of that. Um, any other challenges out there regarding diversity and anything you've run into with the families that you've had over the years?
As you typing, I think also just that also helps to for the child to develop empathy, which is so important today.
Absolutely.
We have no more comments, but
Okay.
that last one was great.
Yes, it was absolutely. That's a great way to end the PowerPoint. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to tie what we just learned about diversity into what we're doing with Gee Whiz. And I know we have a mix of people on our webinar tonight. Some of you are customers, some of you are not customers. You're just learning to learn more about who we are, what we do. And so part of this cohort is that we are going to take new knowledge, in this case about diversity, and we're going to link it back into what we do at Gee Whiz, connecting those dots, so to speak. So for those of you who are not aware of who we are totally and what we do in a nutshell, Gee Whiz is a company dedicated to family childcare. We supply a curriculum. There's 2 units a month. It comes via our website. And everything we do lives on this website. We do not ship a box of materials. Everything is right here. You can order 24/7. You can access the curriculum 24/7. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into that because it's all right here. So if you want to learn more about Gee Whiz, we have our user's guide, which is right here. We have our catalog, which is there. Our outline for the upcoming year is right here. So what I'm going to do now, though, is I want to sign in. And this is what you would do if you were a customer. And let's see if I can remember my password. Okay, and this would look a little different if you were a customer, what screen you see here, but what has happened is this tab for GWE customers has come up, and what we're going to do is go into this month's units. Because what we're going to do now is tie back into what we just talked about into our 2 units for September, which are My Home, Your Home first, and then we'll look at Dancing to the Beat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the English files because I do not speak Spanish. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this is just a little bit about what the unit's going to be about. As you can guess, it's going to be about ourselves, our families, different types of homes. And I'm going to open up the teaching guide. And at the teaching guide at the beginning, we always have an introduction, which talks a little bit about what the unit's going to be about. And then there's just a table of contents. And then here are the picture codes for our developmental areas. For those of you who are not customers of Gee Whiz, and even those who are, this is really, really important that you understand this. There are 10 developmental areas that are addressed, and there are program symbols for each one of those areas. And those symbols are important because for each activity that we have in the lesson plans, you're going to see these symbols, and that's going to tell you what areas of development you're going to develop by doing the activity or the experience. So our 10 areas that develop are language development, literacy knowledge, math, science, logic and reasoning, social studies, social emotional development. Music and creative arts actually have 2 different symbols, this being for music and movement development, and this being for creative arts, and then physical development and health and approaches to learning. So what this means is when we get into the lesson plans and you see this symbol, for instance, right here, this heart, you'll know that the activity or the experience is going to address social and emotional development. So even if you are a customer, it's really important to be able to rattle off what each one of these different areas is so that you know when you're doing experiences what the goal is and what areas you're going to develop. So here's our planning grid for the whole month, and we have all the different activities listed. Some providers will actually print this and post it, and then we're going to get into our unit. All right. And because we have people on here who are not customers, just briefly, there are 2 pages for each daily lesson plan, and there are 10 days of lesson plans in each unit. There are 2 units in each month, hence 20 days of lesson plans. This is our My Home, Your Home unit, and we always have a focus up here. What is a family? Which is perfect for bringing diversity into your program, because what is a family, right? I mean, a family can be lots of things, and it can look a lot of different ways. So one of the things we're going to do here in our exploring together is we're going to talk about our own personal family, which would be your family. So for instance, you're going to need a picture of your family for this experience, and you're going to talk about who all those people are in your family. And then the children are going to have an opportunity to talk about who lives at their home with them, because family to a child, and we get into this in this unit, extended family. In other words, family members that do not necessarily live in your home. But first we have to start with right there in their home. Who lives in their home with them? And does that change, or is it the same? Like, is it the same people that live there all the time, or do we have some people that come and go, or do we go somewhere? You know, if a child is from a family where there's a divorce, they may live on weekends with one person and during the week with someone else, or they may switch off every other week. Or the new arrangement sometimes is the child doesn't go anywhere, but the parents come in and out. So thinking about that right now and thinking about the families in your program, how are the families in your program different, and how can you incorporate that into what you do? So pick one of the children in your group that you think has a unique family situation and share that in the box. Keeping in mind that unique just means different than what we all in our back of our head think of when we think family and what the media has presented as family over the years.
There's been several questions as you're typing. I just want to let everybody know. There's been several questions about downloading the PowerPoint. We can send that to you if you were not able to download that after, maybe if you request a certificate, we can send it with that after the post assessment. So please don't fret over that. Just take a few more minutes and let's see. Okay. Child lives with mother and sees father sometimes.
Okay, good. In today's world, we also have some children who live with grandparents. That's not at all uncommon. You might have, unfortunately, a child that may live with one parent or a grandparent, and somebody may be incarcerated. That's not uncommon either. So, yeah. Any other unique situations? Or
Child
just,
lives with child lives with grandparents and doesn't know his parents.
so his grandparents are his parents. In his
Yeah.
mind, his grandparents are his parents.
Children with parents at the army. So
Oh,
as
yes, that's a very interesting situation where they
a,
go and they come back. Yeah.
a foster family. Maybe the child lives with a
Uh-huh.
foster family.
Exactly.
Child lives with grandparents, both parents in prison. That's tough. That's,
That's sad.
that
Oh
is,
my goodness.
um,
But it's important that you know that, right? I mean,
Right.
it's important for many different reasons. It's important for you to know that on a social emotional level for that child, because that's a rough situation. And I think the point here as we talk about this is to recognize that when you're doing like this experience, to help everyone feel like no matter what their family is, no matter who lives in their house with them, it's still a family. And all families are to be respected and all families are to be honored, and it's wonderful that they are different. Um, Again, back in the day when you go back in time to the 50s, right? The nuclear, quote unquote, nuclear family was mom, dad, and two children, and maybe a dog. And today's families are not anywhere close to being homogeneous in any kind of way, and that's okay. And I think that's the point, is to just help everyone feel like their family's respected no matter what their family is.
And the last response was that one provider has two children from foster families.
Oh, okay, very good. Well,
Oh, homosexual parents. A
yeah.
homosexual parent was a great experience for me.
Yeah, two dads, two moms.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, again, just the idea that all families are unique and special, and they deserve respect, and they deserve to have equal, um, I don't know, equal attention in your group. So that's awesome. All right, so let's move on to the, whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I hit the wrong button. Um, so then that was our exploring together. So you'd be doing all that, and then as our two small group experiences, for instance, for this day, we're doing books, fiction and nonfiction. Families are different because books are a wonderful way to expose children to different. Maybe you have a group of very homogeneous families, right? Where everybody's family is relatively the same. Books are a wonderful way to open the door to see that it's not that way everywhere. We're lucky that, or we're that's just the way it is in our little group right now, but that isn't the way it is in the real world. And then we're doing a second group or a small group experiment called A Home for a Family, where we're going to role play we're going to build a house, which is nothing more than a folding table and some blankets, and then we're going to pretend we're a family. So let's look at the do any of you have any favorite books about families? You can share the title that you think are awesome for helping children see that there are many different kinds of families. If you have the title of a book that you're thinking of, share it in the comment box if you would, please.
And what I can do with that is send that as an answer to all, so you can all see the title of the books that they're sharing when we get some of those. And even as we go forward, I can send that out, which would be under your question box. You would see the title of the books. And sometimes it's hard to remember the title right off. If you know it, you know where it is, and you can see it.
It's that book about. And let's say you couldn't, or you didn't have any in your own personal library and you wanted to find books like that, how or where could you look?
To me, that's about as important as knowing where that book is. Just know where to go find the resources that you need.
Mhm. So let's say you wanted to add some books about families and different kinds of homes to your language corner or your book center. Where would you go to do that?
The book I cannot remember the name of that all the relatives are coming to visit. Somebody responded at the library or online would be a great place to find your books. Absolutely. Amazon, but also the library. You don't have to buy everything. You can always just check them out.
And the other place to find books really inexpensively is Goodwill or a thrift store. Um, Ours is, I think they're like for a paperback, $1 or something. And you can get, if you buy four, then you get the fifth one free. And you would not believe how many children's books there are there, because unlike me that still has a very large box of children's books that I just cannot bear to part with from my children, a lot of people, especially if they're moving, will get rid of children's books. And they're usually in really good shape, and it's a great way to pick up books.
Library diversity section or cultural store. That's a good.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And the other thing you can do too is if you happen to live in an area where there's museums, um, sometimes I live outside of DC, so I have a huge advantage, but sometimes at the museums they'll have pamphlets or little booklets that are free, and you can even add them because, yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a book, it can be some type of informational piece as well. Those are great ideas.
Yeah. That's all we
The
got right
key,
now, but those are good.
right, and the key is that you just want to make sure that the books you have in your center for doing this unit, my home, your home, and for all of the units that you do reflect different ethnicities, different cultural backgrounds, in this case, different family makeups, different types of homes, to help the children again see that it's all different and it's great that it's different. It should be celebrated. So as you go on, we also have an infant experience for those of you who are not familiar with Gee Whiz and Purple. So this would be something that you could do with your infant. And again, this is probably something that even your older ones are going to want you to do because they'll love the attention. And then we move into the second day, which is we're going to build upon what we learned yesterday and expand upon that to talk about their family. So in this case, you're going to need their family photo from home. And the beauty of today's world is that that could be texted to you, it could be emailed to you. It's not like back in my day where I had to sit with a box of photographs and try to find something through 5,000 photographs. I mean, at least today's world, it makes it fairly easy. And again, the point of this being that they can see with their own eyes how all the families look different. Just like Adrienne said with her tree that she created with the family tree and all the different families on there. Same concept that, they're not all going to look the same. They're going to look different, and that's great. And it gives you the perfect time to talk about likenesses and differences, and helps the children build skills like visual discrimination, and also comparing and contrasting. Okay, so anything that you need ahead of time in the Gee Whiz curriculum is always in red, so you have a heads up that you're going to need to ask for that ahead of time or gather that ahead of time. So in this case, it's just the children's family photos. And I even had a suggestion down here. It's so funny that you suggested that, Adrienne, because I said you could take them and create a display, but you were one step ahead of us, as you usually are. But again, just the idea that you can incorporate a lot of diversity and talking about, again, the family makeup and how all families are unique as you look through these family photos. And then we're going to play a game called How Many Members, which is going to practice our counting skills. They're going to make crowns. And right here with the family crowns, this is a key thing here. So we're going to make a crown using gingerbread cookie cutters to stamp paint on a crown for our family. Now, notice that we have different levels here, because part of diversity is also, again, remember we talked about it, it's our abilities, our challenges, and all those things. So one of the things we do in Gee Whiz is we help you by leveling different experiences where we feel like there might need to be different adaptations for different developmental levels. Now, that is not their chronological age. That is the age at which they're functioning. So what I encourage everyone to do that's using the curriculum is read both options, okay? And think about the children in your group, because this is also a way to diversify, right? You're not assuming everybody can do the same thing the same way, because let's face it, you probably don't even have two children that are exactly the same in skill level and everything. So this allows you to diversify your curriculum based on their developmental needs. So what I would like you to do right now is look at the family crowns idea, and I want you to read both of the options there, and I want you to think about the children in your group, okay? And think about, okay, which children that you have would do it this way for toddlers, twos, young threes, again, thinking developmentally, and which could do it as older threes, fours, or advanced preschoolers, okay? Because again, this is a way to diversify. Um, And then one of the things we have suggested here also to help you diversify, which we talked about earlier as a material you can add, is to have different shades of paint, right? And they can choose the shade that they feel is most representative of their self and their family. And in the case of, I think there was somebody on here that had a child that was adopted or a foster child that was a different nationality, then maybe they need two different colors of paint because mom and dad look one way and I look a different way, or grandma looks this way and my grandfather looks this way. So that having that option to choose different colors of paint may seem very simplistic to us as adults, but to a child, that's a big deal. And so incorporating those different colors and different shades is easy to do with brown and white and a little bit of yellow, or you can make lots of different shades. And in fact, if you have older children, like right now during this, the after schoolers, you might want to have them help mix that paint up the day before so it's ready to go during the day today. Use them. I mean, school age children can be a real um, challenge some days because they come after school and they're rambunctious. So, but if they have a purpose and they have a task, it can be really good, not just for them um, to show that they can accomplish something and follow directions, but also it gives them self-esteem because they have a purpose, right? They have a role and their role is important. So again, read through the different options and think about the children in your group. And then think about any child that you don't think really fits either one of those options. How could you diversify this experience for that child? Is there anybody that's just not fitting in either one of these? And how could you twist it up a bit? Because it's really important to think about each experience in the children in your group. So this wasn't what I needed you to type. I just wanted you to think. All right, and then we move on to, again, we're expanding out. So we started with your family, so they got a concept of family. Then we moved to the family that lives with them, and now we're moving on to extended family and family that lives in other places. And it sounds like a lot of you have different cultures from all over the world. So this opens the door for you to bring those cultures into your program, right? So when we look down here at their family too, again, you're going to gather some information because you might not know, right? We might not know where uncles or cousins or grandparents or anyone lives, and then we're going to integrate an active song in there. Let's go to my uncle's house. Let's go to my grandma's house, and we're going to talk about the different types of transportation. So for some of them, it might mean that they live in Africa, right, or on an island somewhere in the Caribbean. And so that's why we have this access to a computer or a tablet, because we're going to use Google Maps and we're actually going to look up where they live. One of the things we do in Gee Whiz is we use technology in a way that it helps children see the power of technology, right? So technology is amazing, and the things that we can do today that even I couldn't do 30 years ago, it blows my mind. So Google Maps is awesome because you can find out where that person lives, where their family came from in Africa or the islands, and actually put it in Google Maps and look at where it is. And then, oh my goodness, it's an island. Can we take the car there? No. How are we going to get there? And then you can incorporate that into a song. So you'll find in the Gee Whiz curriculum where we're interweaving technology in a meaningful way. There's some technology built into this unit that takes you to videos of different types of homes around the world. And when we get into our music unit in a second, you're going to see how we use technology there again to maybe somebody's never heard a trumpet being played. Maybe somebody's never heard a violin being played. And so we use technology to bring that into your program in a meaningful kind of way. All right, so I'm not going to spend more time going through this teaching guide for My Home, Your Home. I think you get the idea of how important it is as you're doing this unit, and any unit really, to integrate the children's ethnicities, their family makeups, all of that into the curriculum to make it their own, right? It's just so important to do that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back out of here. And if I wanted to download all the other components, I would simply click to download. I do want to point out the add and enhance because this is super important. These are things that you can integrate into your different areas that align with the unit we're doing, but also provide an excellent time for you to add diversity into your program. This is a tool that can be very helpful to you as you are working on your, I know in family child care, it's either going to be class or Fickers for the environmental rating scale scores, adding these kinds of materials that represent the diversity and integrating them into your, your areas, even if it's a box that comes out during the day and gets put away at night, is a great way to do that. So there's one of these for each unit. I just wanted to point it out so that you knew where it was. And then all the other components for this unit you would find as you go down through here, and they're all available to download. But I'm not going to go do that because I want to go up here and I want to go back one more because this was my home, your home. And again, we translate over the family letter, the All About My Week report, the digital family notes, a make it sheet if it needs to be translated. In other words, if there's text on it, we'll translate it over. And those will be found in Spanish here. We haven't gotten as far as doing any other languages, and we've been asked numerous times to please do the teaching guide, but for numerous reasons, we haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. It's just, there's a lot of graphics. So now we're going to go into Dancing to the Beat, and here's the same process with the download button. And we're going to look at this and talk a little bit about how we can integrate diversity in here. This came up a lot earlier when we talked about music. People said musical instruments. They talked about music. And music and instruments are a wonderful way to expose children to different cultures. And this unit just fits in really well with the My Home, Your Home and the diversity, because we're going to incorporate a lot of things in here that will help to expose children to different types of music. Even the fact that we like and dislike different types of music. My kids go crazy because my husband likes country western music and they hate it. And so every time we're in the car, like, Dad, please turn off that station. So even that kind of thing where we have different likes and dislikes, but we have to respect our different likes and dislikes, which makes us diverse, is part of this unit. Again, starts out with the same thing with the program symbols. And then we have our planning grid. And then in this unit, we're going to start out with music and musicians and just talking about what a musician is and different kinds of music. And you'll notice over here, and I didn't touch on it in the other one, but the questions to spur thinking. This is also a great place to bring diversity into your program because the types of questions that you ask can get very different answers. We talked about problem solving, how there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer to some problems, and everybody's ideas need to be respected. That's really important part of this questions to spur thinking that are open-ended, like, what do you like about music? You're not going to get the same answer from everybody on that question, and that's okay. And again, that shows children that it's okay to have your own opinions, and we should all respect each other's opinions, and that's another way to bring diversity into your curriculum. How does listening to music make you feel? This last question here. And again, these questions are part of Gee Whiz on purpose. These questions are part of the curriculum because they are a way, again, for you to engage with children and build those back and forth interactions, which is what they're looking for when you're doing class or the Fickers assessment. So this is really going to help you in the environmental, when you get your environmental rating done, because if you're asking these open-ended questions, you're engaging with the children, you're asking you're getting this conversation going. That's what they're looking for. So anyway, this first day introduces them to musicians, and we play some games, and we have a music hunt, and then we're going to hop along a path. But here's one right here where we can talk about diversity. So it's called Feel the Music, and we're going to finger paint to music. So I want you to think about the children in your group right now and the diversity they bring to the table. And I want you to think about what you could do if you did this experience with them to represent their cultures, their heritage. What could you do in terms of music? And just put the thoughts you have in the question box, please.
We've had such good responses. And I know it's getting late and you've been very patient and attentive, both.
Yes, yes.
Okay. No comments yet. but that's okay. Sometimes it takes a few minutes just to get your thoughts down. Nothing yet, Beth, but if we do have some thoughts around that, I can stop you in just a minute and share them.
Okay, sometimes it takes a
Oh,
delay too.
got one. In terms of music, I will let each child play according to his or her own interest and rhythm.
Cool.
I play music that will get their attention, what they like, to get them moving.
Hmm.
You'll have some that love to dance.
Oh, yes.
And it's interesting too when you talk about the mood of the music. I mean, how music makes you feel. Sometimes it's the music that makes you have a different feeling, and they'll sense that. Or they, I know you've all heard Baby Shark, but when I play that, my grandchildren go crazy and they run and run and run. And it's that one song.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the other thing you can do here too is because we're trying to think about diversity. For instance, one of you mentioned that you had a family that they came from the islands. Well, the islands are known for their music, right? So you might want to shoot an email out to them and say, hey, I'd like to incorporate some music from an artist that's popular in the islands. Who would you suggest? Then the beauty of technology, once again, is guess what? You can find that on Pandora, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. More than likely, you will be able to find that kind of music from that artist, especially if they are one of the most popular artists. So, as you're doing this finger painting experience, you can ask that question and try to get some music that is representative of the cultures within your group.
There's one more response that I think is very interesting. YouTube videos of different cultures is fantastic, even if we do not understand the lyrics.
That's right. Exactly. Because music is universal, right? It's rhythm and it's harmony and it's melody. And so even if you don't understand what they're saying, it's kind of like when you go to the opera. I have never been to the opera, but I love to listen to the music. I don't understand a word they're saying because they speak Italian and I don't speak Italian. So exactly, that comment was great because even if you don't understand what the lyrics are saying, you can respond to the music itself. So yeah, when you're doing this finger painting, you can incorporate that kind of music in there, not just the same old thing that they're used to hearing all the time. Mix it up, play some classical music, play some Beethoven, play some Mozart, um, play
There's a
some.
good comment. We have a couple of other good comments. We play a variety of music every day. I try to find something new we have not heard before just to see how the kids react.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
We, we do marching parades and we may dress up and a cultural thing pertaining to that music.
That's a
Ooh,
really cool
lots of
idea.
comments all of a sudden. Children in my program like Baby Shark too, and they like it loud. I'm from Nigeria, so I play my big jambox drum. Nope, djembe drum. I don't know what that is, but maybe you can explain it every day, and my children love it. I let them play as well. I ask a family member to come in and play or sing songs that their family enjoys.
Excellent.
Diversity music is vital to help them think. We do. I like that one. Baby Shark is magic. Tell that to my husband. Okay. Monday, classical. Tuesday, Soco.
Ooh.
S-O-C-O.
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday, jazz. Thursday, hip hop. Friday, children's choice. I
Very
like
cool.
that.
Very cool.
That's a great idea.
Very cool.
Those are
And
all good. Thank
And
you.
there's a lot of research actually that ties music to mathematics and mathematical thinking. So exposing children to music is so important because, and I think a lot of that, and I have to delve into the research more, but there's a lot about rhythm and beat. And actually, when you think about too, when you get into rhyme, songs have rhyming, you're really exposing them to the concept of rhyming, which will then come into play as they learn to read. So music is so powerful. And like Sherry said, we are getting close to the end, but I do want to make sure that we talk about this and everything you just hit on right here. Look right here: pop, country, classical, reggae, tribal, mariachi, and your sources: YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, iTunes. That's the beauty that you have from back in the day when there were record players and then there were 8-track tapes, and then there were cassette players, and then there were CDs, which I have a whole box full down in the basement. And now everything is digital, and it's so easy to find what you're looking for. So you guys have such an advantage over even what I had when I was teaching, because it didn't exist, right? But I think you all are really getting the idea of how music, and this unit, Dancing to the Beat, can also be a very powerful way to bring diversity into your program, through the instruments, through the music itself, through, like somebody mentioned, costumes, because a lot of dance does involve costumes. So adding that in there is very powerful. And yes, YouTube has some, and you'll find actually, if we would scroll all the way to the end of this unit, I've given you some links to YouTube videos for different types of dance, because we're going to get into different types of dance. Also, different types of instruments that they can see how they're played, because again, these are young children. They may not have any background with somebody playing, for instance, a violin, right? And then also, because I know everybody doesn't have a rhythm band, this is a unit where it'd be great to have a rhythm band, but not everybody has one. I found some ways that you can make your own rhythm band instruments, and those are actually, there are links to those in the back of this guide as well. So the point being that if I can find links that I think will help you, I will build them into the unit. But I think everybody that's been on this webinar tonight has really gotten a great idea of diversity, what it means, how they can incorporate it into their program, if they're using Gee Whiz, how it fits in with what we're doing, not just in these 2 units, but throughout the year. That was really our goal behind tonight, was to help you basically understand what diversity is, what it looks like, and how you can integrate it into your program. Um, and so hopefully everybody's going to walk away with that. And like Sherry said, if you for some reason couldn't download the PowerPoint presentation, we will figure out how to get that to you. Like she said, maybe Sherry, what we could do is also post it somewhere on our website. And then that way, when we send the certificate, we could include a link to the PowerPoint at that point, but we'll figure it out. Don't
We'll make
fret.
sure you get it. Please
Yeah,
don't fret. I
yeah,
had one
right.
lady say she was taking screenshots. It's way too much work. We will get it to everyone that
Yeah,
attended tonight.
absolutely, absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go back out of here really quickly, because I know we do have quite a few people on the call that maybe are not familiar with Gee Whiz. I just want to take you back to our homepage, because there's a lot of information there about who we are, how we do. If you want to know the research behind Gee Whiz, you can find that under this tab. Our products has a lot of information about, like I said, the catalog, the outline, the user's guide. There's a bunch of freebies under here. Our support tab is here. So if you like this training webinar, the next one will be posted under training webinars. It'll probably be sometime in a similar time frame in September. And I don't know what the topic will be yet, but we will find out soon. And we are recording this, like Sherry said. The recording will be then posted on our YouTube channel. It will also be posted down here in our video gallery, which if you scroll down, it's right here where it says watch videos to learn more. It will be posted there as well. I am going to mention, if by any chance you're listening to this once it is recorded and posted, there is a post assessment that is going to pop up for those of you on this live webinar. At the end, there's a short survey, like 2 or 3 questions, and then you're going to get a link to the post assessment. Do not fret. It is not that hard. It's only 10 questions. But at the end of that, you will have the opportunity to request a certificate of attendance. So if you're listening to this and it's a recorded webinar, you're going to see that link on our YouTube page directly below where you click to watch the training. There'll be a hot link to the assessment, or on our video gallery, it will be posted under there as well. So after you watch it, then you'll do the assessment, same process. And just give us about 7 to 10 days to get the certificate emailed to you. It will not come in the mail. It will come to you via email. Sometimes we get them done sooner, sometimes later, just depends on what's going on. And this is a really crazy busy time of year for us. But we really appreciate your time. We hope that you found everything that we covered tonight helpful. Again, don't worry if you didn't get the PowerPoint to download for you, because we'll make sure that you get it, because I know there's a lot of information in there that people would like to have. And I want to stop at this point just to see if there are any additional questions that I can answer. Anyone out there on the webinar that has a challenge related to diversity that they would like me to answer, or if you're a current Gee Whiz customer and you have a question regarding the use of the curriculum, I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
If you have questions after the webinar is over, please don't hesitate to send them to either customer support at geewizeducation.com, S. Mayberry at geewizeducation.com, or B. Smith at geewizeducation.com. If you are a customer, um, please remember to download your files to a folder because once they come down, it's very hard. You can't get them again. So make sure you set up your folders with the different units, different months, and so you can use them at any time, especially since the program is not dated. So many of these you can just use at any time. Oh, here's a good question. If you don't have any child from a different culture, do you still teach diversity? Yes,
Absolutely,
because you can,
absolutely,
they all,
absolutely.
go ahead.
Yeah, you can still go ahead and incorporate those types of materials into your areas. You can use books, you can use videos. And the point being, like I just said a little bit ago, I grew up in Central PA. The most diverse I got was the Amish community. Okay, because that was it, right, for me. But that doesn't mean you can't expose children to different cultures through the units that we're doing, for instance, for September are perfect because you can show them houses from around the world. You can show them, you can share music from around the world. You can incorporate, even if you want to do a families wall, and you can have their families, but then you could take pictures of other different families that are not like their families and put them on the wall. The idea being that you're just going to expose them to the idea that there are many different types of families and cultures and ethnicities and abilities, and that's a great thing. That's what makes our world wonderful.
Again, we hope if you did enjoy this, that you'll come back next month because we will be doing this every month. So just come back and check on our webpage for the next one and the link to sign up. And we'll be sending out MailChimps with that link also with it, and share. Please share these webinars with your friends or peers that, especially if you feel like that they may benefit from one of these training webinars, or even share the links on our video page with them.
Yeah, because our goal really with this is to support you. Our goal is to support you as a provider, to help you build a knowledge about early childhood and also obviously how that integrates into what we do. But our goal is to support family child care providers. That's kind of why we do what we do. We're not a curriculum for centers. We're specifically for family child care. So if we can support you in any way, if you ever have an idea about how we can better reach providers like yourself, again, shoot us an email at customerservice@geewizeducation.com. You can email me, Beth Smith, at bsmith, that's B as in boy, Smith, at geewizeducation.com, and Sherry at smayberry at geewizeducation.com. We're happy to take feedback or ideas at any time. Our goal is really to support you. So we're just glad that you took the time tonight, because we know your days are crazy, and by this time of night you're tired and probably hungry, and so we're happy that you joined us.
There's one quick question that's a great question, has nothing to do with diversity or the program. It says, how do you add it to a folder to save? If you're on a Mac and you have Finder, up at the top of Finder, if you click on File, it'll say New Folder. What I do is set up folders within folders within folders. So I might start the first folder, it says curriculum. The next folder may say September 2019. The next folder may be first unit. And so I'd put all the files under the first unit. And then I would come back to that September 19 and put another folder under there that would be the second unit. Now, so that's from a Mac. You go under Finder and you set up your folders there, so that then when you click on the download, you just drop them into that folder. On a PC, Beth, can you share how you set up folders on a PC?
Yeah, if I can remember how to do it.
I know I had to go look.
Yeah. So on my PC, what I would do is, if I was in, let's say I was in the teaching guide, and these are all PDF files. So you can click on the PDF and open it, and then you're going to go up there and say File, and then you're going to choose Save As. And when you choose Save As, you have the ability to create a new folder. For instance, you might want to name it the unit. You might want to call it home or my home or whatever you want to call it. And then you could just create a new folder and save everything to that one folder called my home. Um, it depends on what version, even on a PC of Windows you're running, because they keep changing everything. So it's really hard without seeing your computer and knowing what you're running to know how to do that. But the other way to do that, and here's where I go all the time, YouTube, go to YouTube and type in how to create folders on a PC, and it'll walk you through exactly how to do it. I was something I was trying to do the other day, and I was like, okay, I'm going to YouTube.
Or
And it,
Google.
or
Go to
Google.
Chrome and Google it. I
Yeah,
mean, I was just looking up how to set up headsets today, and you can find about whatever. And it's usually 5 steps, and they'll walk
yeah,
in. Sometimes it takes me more than one time to try it, but it's a wealth of information. Once you get it, you got
right,
it.
right. And the other thing, I have a Gmail account, and with my Gmail account, I have my kids call it the G cloud, but it's the cloud basically, because when you have Google, you have a Gmail account, you have Google Drive, and you can store things in the cloud, which is that way if something happens to your computer, you always have a backup. So, I back up all the files I have that are important out there, but you can also use a flash drive that you just plug into the side of your computer. That way you have a backup in case something happens. But that was a great question. And for those of you who are not customers and you're trying to learn how to save files, uh, I'm a very visual person, so watching a video helps me tremendously rather than just reading it. Like I have to see it. So,
And
um,
this person is on an iPad, and I believe on an iPad, I think I've done this. You can download those files. What's the one that where you have all your books that you open to read on your
iBooks.
iPad?
Isn't
iBooks.
it iBooks? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's iBooks. You can download that to iBooks.
Yes, I believe that is correct.
Yeah,
The only
I
things you
know I've
couldn't
done that.
download to iBooks would be the digital family notes because they are a JPEG. That's like a photo, so they would end up going in your photo file. So hopefully that helped you. Any other questions we can answer?
Let's make sure. Let me just scroll down. Nope, I think that's it.
All right.
Um, 8:30. We told you we'd be done by 8:30. We so appreciate all of you coming and look forward to any comments. You should get a survey as soon as we close this webinar that will have just a couple of quick questions for us, and then also a link to the post assessment. So if not, you can reach out to us and we'll get that to you. But thank you for coming. And good night to all wherever you are in different places. And we're so lucky we didn't have a storm. So
Yes, I know. It thundered here and I was holding my breath. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice evening.
thank you. Good
Bye.
night.